History of Mancers Grimoire. You are listening at FameTV.info. First things first. I want to thank my readers for both Spectral Regalia Ethereal Sovereign for sticking with me since the beginning. I just want to clarify that this story will be updated when I feel like writing. This isn't to be rude, and I hope no one takes offense. SR takes a lot of thought to do. I need to constantly go over the past chapters and history as well as plan things that will not ruin the story later on. ES is a story where ideas for SR just won't fit in at that point or at all. Grimoire is a story that I want to incorporate everything I have learned so far. I want to try writing this story well. I intend to give using tables a go in this story. To my readers, this story may or may not contain harem, but keep in mind I don't believe in harem in a way that a MC is being followed by 5 females who fight for that one guy. It's unrealistic, and I prefer to take my time with it all. I plan to include quite a bit of action. In fact, this may have more action per 10 CHS than ES and SR. When reading this chapter 1, expect that you, my dear readers, will be perceptive and think about the technical stuff. I am also relying on you to help me improve, and if I make a mistake to let me know. Other than that, I won't spoil anything, but I want you guys to know there is quite a bit of history involved, and it may give clues regarding some content for this story. A small disclaimer. In this story I talk about religion for a bit. I don't specify which one, but please know it's not my intention to offend anyone. Please know I am also religious, and I am still writing this. The world is not dangerous because of those who do harm, but because of those who look at it without doing anything. Albert Einstein. In the year 2000 AD, humanity had entered a phase where innovation and ideas began to take over. It was also a time when the ideals of religion had begun to be pushed aside for newer and improved ideals. Humanity ceased their warring amongst each other in the year 2245 AD, as religion had all but been forgotten, except for the few parts of the world that had kept to their ideals. The true leaders of humanity's future became those who innovated for the better of their fellow humans. It was also the year when humanity's conflicts had all but ceased to combat the natural threat that would see to humanity's destruction without a hint of remorse. Global warming, Mother Nature's way of starting an Armageddon, was the direct result of humanity's innovation and lack of investment in space exploration that threatened to wash away humanity under Earth's oceans. Some of humanity turned to religious values, once again seeking their redemption, while others turned to the governments of their respective countries to fix the problem. With many members of the government discovering that global warming itself wasn't something easily fixed, even with their advanced technology, the great countries of the world banded together to use all their resources to come up with a solution. Edmund Wade, the leading climatologist of the year 2248 AD, proposed an idea in a way that made use of humanity's resources differently. Humanity came to the realization that they had taken the wrong direction when it came to their innovation. Thinking that they would be able to live on Earth without venturing out let humanity realize its mistake was keeping with the phrase, "the sky's the limit." Staying with flying vehicles and increasing safety with planes and the like wasn't enough to guarantee humanity's safety from the impending natural disaster. What Edmund Wade proposed in the year 2251 AD during the G32 conference was that humanity should funnel all its resources into space exploration. With several top scientists in their respective fields agreeing with Edmund Wade's proposition, the scientists in the G32 conference, whom had understood the danger through oceanology, geography, paleomagnetism, and other studies on the Earth, all clamored their opinions to support Edmund Wade's idea. In the past, humanity's various governments had waged war for oil and land, all in the name of economy. All of that would soon prove to be completely useless in approximately 400 years when all the ice shelves around the North Pole and the South Pole melted, leaving behind nothing but aquatic life. It was then that the entire world's space programs, from NASA to the RFSA, began to work together for a common goal. Former allies and rivals would join under one body, the Astro Conglomerate. With the backing of 32 world powers and a budget with endless zeros, humanity had given Earth a glimmer of hope. Over the years, several islands began to change. Deserts were starting to grow tropical rainforests, and animals began to lose their original habitats. People losing their homes to the event began to migrate wherever they could, which began to financially tax the nations that gave those fleeing refuge from the coming storm. Those who had become fed up with the government's carelessness in not addressing the problems of the earth began to turn to religion once more, in hope of seeking a miracle with the addition of redemption. A leading figure in one of the largest religions spoke words that no one else, religious or otherwise, would ever think possible from one who values God above all else. Humanity is God's creation. All knowledge originates from God Himself. The organization Astro Conglomerate are using the knowledge that God Himself has bestowed upon the people of the Astro Conglomerate over the years of their dedication. Is this not a sign that God has not forsaken us? I believe we should put our faith towards the progress of these people. If we fail, it only means we have failed God. If we are to succeed, it means God's knowledge was not wasted and we have been granted a second chance to live again. People hearing this didn't know how to react. With religions on the decline, there had been many a fanatic who tried desperately to seek attention for their respective religion only to fail. And with the AC gaining approval from this man, other religious leaders mulled over his words. The logic in his words allowed their views to coincide with AC's goals. In the end, the religious leaders agreed with the man. In the year of 2340 AD, humanity's ever-expanding population of 14 billion was put to good use. Millions upon millions of laborers were hired, or themselves volunteered to put their skills and muscle to build humanity's last hope. The vessel Evergreen, in the name of their hopes and dreams. Humanity's advancement in 90 years allowed them to freely build in space with no worry. Such an expansive place allowed the spanning 100 kilometers length and 20 kilometers width of the under-construction vessel Evergreen to take place, as well as a constantly expanding labor force with the addition of innovative robotics and technology that helped aid humanity's construction of the Evergreen. With Evergreen's construction, the labor force experienced its own setbacks. One such setback was the shortage of food, due to the millions of workers that had gathered to support humanity's last hope. In response to the impending crisis, hundreds of thousands of farmers and their partners were brought into an area to supplement the need of food. Australia's Great Victoria Desert turned tropical due to the change in weather patterns, and as such was more than suited to grow crops and raise cattle, thus becoming the hub for farm activity. With a total workforce comprising of farmers and laborers that numbered about 24 million, Evergreen was scheduled to be completed in the year 2596 AD, in time for humanity to work out a solution to the terror known as global warming. Of course, AC's top executives had a dark secret not many knew. Evergreen could only sustain 40 million individuals, and several million would be placed into cryostasis after completing a secret course to man the systems of Evergreen. Of course, AC made sure to keep the smartest minds of humanity on the list. One such individual was Jill Abrams, the woman who made travel possible. Through her years of developing a method of propulsion, what she came up with were photon rifts. Compared to wormholes, photon rifts had significant propulsion. It relied on an internal generator that smashed several isolated particles, both natural and synthetic, while using special systems to harness the energy that negated mass, allowing faster than light travel. AC was cautious. Not wanting to take risks, they had gotten Jill to test her method several times. With some failures as well as difficulties, she and her team of experts finally narrowed it down and had developed the wave engine in regards to how the object traveling with no mass would move like a wave based on their discovery. In the year 2383 AD, the world's top minds were placed into cryostasis, including Jill and her team. Those remaining were sent to a finished section of Evergreen for safety. Humanity had hope, and with everyone on Earth banding together to assist in this, whether they were religious or not, there weren't many people who wanted humanity to fail. Late 2505 AD, Evergreen's progress had been outstanding and would near completion in a few decades. Of course, with each section completed, many of the great minds as well as their families that were no longer needed to progress were placed into cryostasis. Many animals as well as seeds and equipment would enter up into Evergreen. Humanity couldn't be picky regarding diseases. They had the idea that everyone would be able to live on Evergreen. Of course, it was in the year 2510 AD that secret documents were leaked out showing the specifications of Evergreen. The more perceptive people began to ask questions asking how humanity would be able to fit and such. Of course, AC was quick to silence those people, fearing that it would spread. But their mistake was, the more they silenced, the more people wondered what happened to those who had asked questions. Many conspiracy theories were formed. The year was 2562 AD. It was calculated that Evergreen would be completed early in a few years and many were celebrating. It was there that questions would arise again regarding the methods of how all of humanity would board and when it would start. AC knew this outcome was inescapable and set up military complexes around the ports that allowed transport of supplies and materials. This was the second clue humanity was given. Protests soon occurred as well as laborers quitting in fear they wouldn't be allowed on. With many workers leaving, Evergreen's progress slowed. Of course, AC promised those who helped would be guaranteed entry onto Evergreen, which caused an influx in volunteers settling the slow pace before it became an issue. Many people called AC a sham, saying they were lying, and soon in the year 2564 AD a deadly war would be waged. With many wanting to take over Evergreen's progress as well as many millions of volunteers, battles were fought closely to Evergreen's ports that led up into space. AC was not led by idiots, they had already prepared contingencies. They suppressed many of the rebel forces with no mercy while at the same time gathering those they felt were healthiest, no longer hiding most of their intentions. With Earth now facing two battles, many lives were lost spanning in the hundreds of thousands, all while AC sent people up into Evergreen for cryostasis. The rebel forces often intervened, killing a fair portion of those people being sent into Evergreen, saying they were traitors to humanity. With global warming rising, many small islands disappeared as well as calculations were proven wrong and correct. Half of Japan's southern landmass was now lost along with Russia experiencing heat waves. China became a desolate wasteland, and North and South America soon became a new Antarctica. Australia's coastlines began to quiver as the water raised the farm area, where crops and cattle were prepared and grown, were not free from either of the two forces. Global warming had caused the weather to change rapidly, causing it to snow or experience heat waves in different times of the month, making it impossible to calculate a pattern. Of course, the rebels also invested effort to attack the farmlands to destabilize the situation. AC were ruthless in their attempts to subdue the rebel forces using propaganda saying that the rebels were trying to destroy humanity by saying they attacked the farm areas used to feed the laborers. Humanity began to split soon after, some taking sides with the rebels and other calling them traitors. The year 2574 AD Evergreen had been completed despite being slowed by the progress of the rebels attacking. AC was quick to fill up their seats, as many of the healthy humans had been killed by Evergreen. They allowed many laborers on board to enter cryostasis. AC was soon focused on stockpiling supplies and tools as a way of self-sufficiency. Of course, their target planet was Terra. A planet they dubbed a second Earth due to scans showing it was in nearly perfect conditions for humanity to thrive. The year 2576 AD was when AC was finalizing everything and preparing to leave. It was then that all of humanity discovered that AC's words were lies. Soon the rebel faction became an army of nearly billions. AC could not stop the surge of soldiers from overwhelming their facilities despite their superior weapons. That soon proved useless as the rebels soon took control of facilities with equal weapons. With Evergreen's coordinates set in place, and the supplies as well as tools stockpiled to 95% capacity, Evergreen prepared to leave the Milky Way. However, the departure was anything but easy. The rebel forces had used several ICBMs from the facilities captured and launched them towards Evergreen. AC, of course, was not unprepared. They were an organization consisting of humanity's finest and smartest. They had taken the time to develop a satellite system that would act as a field EMP, disabling all ICBMs that entered too far up. Nuclear missiles of the past soon proved the rebels' mistake. Several dozen ICBMs, after being disabled, plummeted downward back to Earth. Some falling into the ocean, and some falling onto the ground with enough force to trigger their explosions. With many humans losing their lives and some of the leftover land turning into radiation zones, the rebels knew the end was coming. They banded together to try and form a way to survive on their own. Evergreen's wave engine soon activated after the current head of AC gave one last look at Earth. With many hundreds of the crew taken out of cryostasis, they each felt a sense of fear for the unknown as well as regret. Of course, they all knew that this was a sacrifice that was needed. With Evergreen being coated in a skin of particles, the ship seemed to blend into space before blinking into existence a distance of 1,133 light-years from Earth. This in turn caused the space around the ship to ripple slightly. With Evergreen traversing through a multicolored spectrum of colors that would dazzle the mind, the head of AC felt the pressure of things. He knew he held humanity's fate in his hands. The date for Evergreen's departure he made sure to preserve was May 7, 2577 NE, New Era. With the years passing and Earth left behind, Evergreen arrived at Terra. A year before the arrival, the top scientists were taken from stasis to prepare for their descent. Thankfully their calculations were correct. Terra had proved identical to Earth. Although the system had 2 suns and 3 moons, it was of no issue as long as the planet was stable. 2643 NE. Having spent much time on Terra, humanity wasted no time as they had created and used tools to create settlements and outposts to prepare for everything as well as find suitable land to prepare food. Much of the wildlife on Terra was as harmless as those on Earth, especially with the weapons at humanity's disposal. Terra was slowly being reshaped on the large second continent to suit humanity's needs. Having found many resources to prepare their needed supplies, humanity had gained new hope and was starting to forget about their counterparts that were left behind. 3943 NE, Terra had been reshaped and many changes had occurred. Humanity had grown considerably, and technology being a hyper-focus, the moons were soon colonized as well as the other planets around the system. Humanity had developed significantly, not just outwardly but inwardly too. Humanity had begun to evolve abilities. At first it had started with simple increased cognitive focus, then it changed to something out of a fairy tale. This was the work of a scientist known as Lei Chan. He felt humanity lacked survivability despite their intelligence. After spending years of research, he had developed the hope gene, named for its potential to bring hope to humanity should they need it. These genes allowed humans to improve their own bodies and minds, becoming 100% more efficient, as if they had evolved with no physical changes. Of course, in the future, unexpected outcomes when playing God would be inevitable. 4213 NE. When the tri-gene was all but commonplace and found a part in the body, it was discovered at the age of 10 is when the gene would manifest and improve the person. During that year there was a case where a child had developed a strange ability named as hypercognition, which would seem to slow things down for the child as if it were in slow motion. This baffled scientists who studied the gene, but as much as they tried, they couldn't understand much or replicate it. As one developed over the years, one by one and sometimes two would form. Scientists were split and argued away at why this happened. Some said it was based on DNA, and that 2 parents with these mutations could give birth to a child with it. Others didn't agree completely as it wasn't the source to begin with. Some said that it depended on the child's life, and the gene would act as a trigger to help the child survive better. This was also discredited as well, as children of wealthy individuals could also have the gene. The people who studied this phenomenon worked on several issues. One was to keep the individuals in check, and the other was to understand a new mystery. Why some individuals had a weaker hypercognition, while others had incredibly efficient ones. Hypercognition allowed one's mind to think incredibly fast as if they were a supercomputer, but they discovered it sometimes varied. Regardless of this fact, these individuals were treasured as geniuses who were gifted and found their status skyrocket as their genes were special. With the different powers of hypercognition, scientists developed a ranking system from 1 to 10. 1 being weakest and 10 being highest. The year 4280 NE, scientists had created a small golf ball-sized mass of white energy based on their understanding of the hope gene. The intention of this energy was to be absorbed into the body in hope of awakening the hope gene to hypercognition. They titled this as a white key, as it was intended to help unlock humanity's progress further. Of course, over time they were let down with many tests. They soon discovered that it was not a failure. Out of every 100,000 1 or 2 people would be able to awaken. With further tests they had discovered that because of the key, another mutation had occurred. Instead of hypercognition, this ability was increased strength. A child at the age of 15 could have the strength of 2 to 3 men, which was incredibly mysterious. It was as if a different type of adrenaline constantly surged within the individual's body. The year 4290 NE studies were concluded with fairly approvable results. If at the age of 10 a child didn't develop an ability, then the white key would be able to give them another chance. They also discovered that the white key varied from hypercognition to hyperstrength, but it was stated that it was based on luck and genes. By the year 4453 NE, hyperstrength had found its way around and was now a common mutation, no longer needing the white key to get around. Of course, those with either abilities were still ranked from 1 to 10. These individuals held special positions in society, even as society rapidly advanced and humanity spread further than their system. The year 4604 NE, humanity's many colonies across many planets in the galaxy and even out of the universe had developed into their own superpowers. Some being monarchies, some being dictatorships. Humanity was too widespread to be under one possible control. Many battles were fought using large vessels as well as mecha known as Mancers. A testament to humanity's ingenuity, some of these Mancers stood at 15 meters. Others costing a planet an incredible amount of resources, standing at 100s of meters. As these battles waged on, humanity continued to rush for more technology to defeat their enemies. Earth was the former battleground, and now humanity had the capability to wage war against each other in the universe. Wars would be waged for resources and a special material known as hyphenite, as it was used in the construction of Mancers to give them durability. Lives were lost whether it was a human on one side of the galaxy or another in a different galaxy. Hyphenite was exceptionally rare, and many warmongering around some planets falling under total destruction as the remnants turned to migration or piracy. The year 4687 SE, Second Era, was when the leaders of humanity came to an agreement to unite and form a treaty after the many years of war. They would sign the Humanity Agreement Bill. This bill stated that no human ruler, whether it be of one planet or an empire, can wage war against another planet without a council of elders, one from each of the 1,000 populated sectors agreeing. Taking inspiration from AC, the organization known as Fulcrum was formed. This group, under supervision from the council, would collect all the rare metals and oversee Mancer creation. During the year 4595 SE, shift battles would be held after Fulcrum established itself. To ease humanity's tension as well as their boredom and make the Council and Fulcrum seem more appealing, these shift battles would allow 1 to 100 individuals battle it out against each other for glory and recognition. The prize was also something to desire. From new types of weaponry to brand new Mancers that are top of the line, but most of all, fame and glory. The elders of the council even got excited at the prospects, and many of the sectors formed Mancer academies to train aspiring individuals as well as gifted prodigies how to use a Mancer in hopes of winning that sector glory and a one-up over the others. 5635 SE, many years after shift battles had begun, a descendant of Jill Abrams known as Neil Abrams developed a way to imbue those with hyper abilities into a Mancer. He adjusted the core of the Mancer to allow gene synchronization with its pilot, allowing the machine to be somewhat sentient and increase its capability. Those with hypercognition could react much faster with their machines, as if the slow motion-like cognition extended to their machine. As well, no longer with slow controls, these Mancers were known as perception Mancers. While those with hyper-strength would be able to pilot Mancers with a more intensive physical toll, as if it were normal, improving their Mancer strength by many times. These were known as strength Mancers. With these advancements and during the shift battles as well as the opening of academies, many of the victors as well as shift battle contestants created clans within their family to sustain their bloodline. This was even more important for those with hyper abilities, as they wanted to keep their bloodline strong and dominate shift battles continuously. 5767 SE. The most influential scientists from Neil Abrams to a descendant of the Mancers creator Tajin Lefo, and even a descendant of Lei Chan, had created the Mancer soul. Using a new living metal infused with the Hope gene and hyponite, as well as other materials, this blob of living metal, glowing gray with a size no larger than a soccer ball, was known as the Mancer soul. The Mancer soul, after being bound by one's DNA, would seek a Mancer skeletal frame made from hyponite or a stronger metal. It would then proceed to create a Mancer body over a span of 10 days after being fed materials needed for the construction. Although that was a feature of the somewhat living metal, it wasn't as surprising compared to what else it could do. If an individual trains their body and mind, and then pilots their Mancer that has been created with a Mancer soul, it would increase the Mancer strength and reaction time based on their training, as if the Mancer itself was upgraded. This allowed limitless potential and put those without hyper abilities on fair ground with hyper users. Of course, the hyper users themselves wouldn't be able to rely solely on their abilities, they would need to train as well. With the technology of the Mancer soul being developed, many entered the business of trying to sell them as they became commonplace. Within several years it became a casual thing for academies to purchase Mancer souls and frames for students who enter the academy. Being funded by the sector, it allowed the academies to prosper greatly. Of course, some academies over the years wouldn't do so well, and students turned former would beg the elder of the sector to allow them to open up another academy to show that they were much more superior. Soon one academy in a sector could turn to a dozen competing for a chance to enter a shift battle. It was then that Fulcrum created a system based on performance. Mancer pilots who perform greatly can progress and enter tournaments or even receive special prestige and glory for their rank. They go as followed. SSS.SS.S.E.C.D.F, with SSS being the highest possible rank given to those who not only wield it in human strength, but those whose Mancers are equipped with weapons created by genius scientists of war with enough firepower to turn anything to ash. Although ranked shift battles were commonplace, losing one's life while fighting for honor was not uncommon. It was a risk many Mancer pilots were willing to take. Killing was not forbidden, but between the Mancer pilots a mutual respect was formed, and it had become a secret taboo for a Mancer pilot to kill another on purpose without it being a death match between two people who have grievances for one another. The year 5868 TE, Third Era, was when Fulcrum formed the science division known as Guild. The reason behind this was the discovery of a hidden sentient energy responsible for dark matter and dark energy. Many people would see this being as God, as their research found that fluctuations and patterns in the energy seemed to form stars, planets, black holes, even galaxies with no given reason. Their discovery of God, or as it is now known as infinity, for its endless ability and expansion throughout the entire universe, led humanity to discover they were not alone. Creatures from the darkest parts of the universe who have lived for millions and even billions of years felt that their link with infinity rippled slightly. It allowed these battle-crazed creatures known as devourers, for their endless habit for devouring anything humanity had created, whether it be Mancers or the humans themselves. They gouged on everything they could find. Humanity had to band together to further strengthen their relationship, but also in giving truth that humanity was destined for an endless war, whether it be with itself or others. Fulcrum formed a single mass force from all of humanity's populated sectors. These soldiers would be known as Wardens of Humanity for their role in preserving humanity's presence. Endless battles soon ensued, and humanity found itself to be outmatched in many aspects. The Devourers' sizes could range from several meters to several kilometers. The Guild began to assist Wardens in their efforts to combat Devourers, thus many improvements were made as well as an improved ranking system. With many years of fighting, the Guild was able to gauge a majority of the Devourers' strength compared to humanity. Although there were only a handful of SSS-ranked Wardens, many of whom considered heroes, they found that it was not easy to kill or even fight certain Devourers. Some would require 2 SSS-ranked Wardens, others would need all of them, and a few could not be scratched by any SSS-ranked Warden no matter how many or what weapons they had. To clarify and cause unneeded deaths to be reduced, the ranking system was upgraded. Z.XXX.xx.ss.ss.s.itupb.c.d.e.f were now the new rankings. Although humanity at that moment seemed to be limited, it didn't stop the Guild advancing their weaponry as well as using infinity. The year 5943 TE the Guild was able to establish a fair connection to infinity and could communicate somewhat with it. But by doing so they let themselves be under its influence and its rules. Infinity gave humanity a reply, and this was in a way no one would expect. It gave humanity fate links. These fate links resembled vending machines in a strange way. The knowledge the Guild obtained from Infinity's response was that the Devourers would now form cores based on their rank. These cores could be used as currency for the fate links like a sort of vending machine. Of course, it was also discovered that these fate links were like a lottery with unique properties. The Guild had begun to experiment with these, and by the year 5953 TE they had gained enough information to establish fair percentages as well as the rewards possibly gained from the fate links. By using fate links, the Guild discovered that weapons equal to humanity's current knowledge or beyond could be obtained. The weapons beyond humanity's knowledge would have restrictions by infinity. One could not research the weapon to improve their understanding to cheat and use the technology. Infinity also made it possible to obtain a tool that would be able to research these equipment at a fair price of Devourer cores based on the ranking of the weapon. The equipment, although varied, would require a title. For the things humanity did not understand and was new to them, they would be known as fate armaments, whether it be a weapon or a physical upgrade on the Mancer. With more information and research being obtained, it was decided that just like the Devourers, both equipment and abilities were ranked as such. If hyper abilities consisted of levels, then Devourers/Fate armaments would use the same rankings from Z to F. Humanity began to establish a fair understanding of fate links that Infinity had bestowed on them to assist in combating Devourers. If an F-rank Devourer core was used, the chances of receiving an A-rank core was 0.5%, a B-rank core 0.8%, a C-rank core 0.9%, and so on, increasing by barely each rank. That being said, the cores were not really the focus of the fate links, and were not the only reward. By Infinity's knowledge, even an F-rank core to someone considered lucky beyond human standards, may receive something that could be considered Z-rank. Of course, no one believed this even if it came from Infinity itself. Fate links, however, were not all joy and gifts. There was also a high chance that one would receive nothing at all and would have wasted their core. With that known, in 5956 TE the Guild focused on understanding fate links. In the same year, an individual had used the fate link to trade in AC rank core and received a fate hyper ability. This caused many wardens, and even those who remained in shift battles, to bombard fate links with the cores they had. The reason being that the hyper ability the man obtained was not hypercognition or hyper strength, but it gave him something new. It gave him telekinesis. The Guild was overwhelmed, because as soon as that man had obtained his ability, that even proved compatible and more effective in a Mancer, many millions of wardens, and even those that chose to remain in shift battles, began to purchase or use their obtained Devourer cores in hopes of obtaining these new hyper abilities. Fulcrum had established the Guild for advancement in technology, and Warden to protect humanity and combat Devourers. But to manage and take advantage of the core market, as well as maintain peace, they established with the help of those who handled Devourer cores, the Consortium of Fate. These many merchants and traders had banded together using their profits, as well as influence, to join and keep order for devourer cores, as many would often kill or steal from each other in hopes of using them to better themselves. The Consortium of Fate created many branch buildings where people could purchase or sell devourer cores as well as anything obtained from a Fate link. Order was quickly maintained, but CF, Consortium of Fate, understood that although they had branch shops, the higher-ranked cores would prove too tempting at times. Thus, they created a headquarters at the center of humanity's sector using a planet and converting it to a hub of trade. This allowed them to protect the higher-ranked cores, and even sell them to those buyers who wanted the best quality of cores for great prices. It was also understood that hyper abilities obtained from Fate links would have a low chance of being passed on to a child. If hypercognition and strength had a 5% chance of being discovered in a child whose parents are both hyper ability users, then Fate hyper abilities would have a 1% chance. In 5984 TE Wardens and Devourers had begun to combat each other. Humanity had lost many sectors under the Devourers' attacks and set up bases on many planets that held nothing but ash and scattered souls. With the help of Fate links, humanity was able to obtain the firepower needed to keep Devourers at bay. Many heroes had made names for themselves using unique Fate armaments as well as Fate hyper abilities. Although it was still hard to combat certain ranked Devourers, humanity's biggest advantage was strategy and the Fate links. The same year humanity could be said to have obtained a great understanding and a great weapon. It was understood over many years of research that very rarely are children born with both hypercognition and strength. These children were heavily sought after and trained by many clans, even the Wardens would seek them out to be great warriors to assist humanity. Of course, the chance for a Fate hyper ability from two parents who had different types was unheard of. Many scientists argued that a mutation may occur which could result in a new unique hyper ability. Others didn't think it was that complicated and said that it would just result in the child being able to use both. With the two sides clashing, neither of them had evidence to support either theory. But they all agreed that the ranking system for the former hyper abilities was no longer useful, and more confusing. Instead, the guild decided to assimilate both ability categories. Fate hyper abilities and normal hyper abilities would no longer be ranked in levels, but would also use the ZF ranking. This allowed less confusion and allowed it to be more organized and tidy. It also allowed the guild and wardens a better way to value someone's ability level by estimating it. The guild, though, was not satisfied. With the knowledge Infinity had previously given them, they developed tools to measure one's hyper ability ranking by comparing it to those of the past. It allowed for a more precise allocation of ranking that the ability deserved. The measure tool also made them realize that hyper abilities over time could increase in strength and be trained to become even stronger. They also used this tool to examine the synchronization between Pilot and Mancer. With humanity managing to establish a guard line between Devourer and humanity's territory, Fate links under the guild's request to Infinity began to appear all over planets in every sector. But Fulcrum itself as well as the three organizations it created knew that there would need to be a way to maintain order. The issue was that if an unknown individual obtained a weapon of immense power, no one knew if he would use it for his own purposes, or to assist humanity. Thus, with another basic request to Infinity, Fate cards were created. The Fate cards themselves were extraordinary and unique. When an individual would reach 5 years of age, Infinity would use a fragment of an energy no one understood but could be known as a soul to create the Fate card. The Fate card itself had many properties. It could store as much currency as one wanted, it could also store Devourer cores in what the guild called a storage dimension. Also, no one else would be able to use or steal the Fate card of an individual as he would just need to focus on it to transport it back to him. The Fate card's main use was that the guild, with the assistance of Infinity, could keep track of those who would turn on humanity. If someone was to obtain a weapon to use to kill others, all they needed to do was request Infinity to tell them about the individual. Fate cards also had other unique aspects. It would activate a hologram that showed the ranking of an individual as well as information about them. It could also show if they had a hyper ability or not. Thus it became a general way for wardens to obtain discounts as well as brag about their glory. Of course, an individual who could obtain a Fate hyper ability or even a unique piece of equipment would be able to notify the guild to receive sponsorship to be trained, be given recognition, and some receive fame if the ability or item were significant enough. 5990 TE. Shift battles became a natural piece of culture for all of humanity. Of course, many wardens looked down upon the Mancer pilots who engaged in shift battles. The reason being they would have it easy compared to the front lines of battle. There was also the justice system that would force those on death row or prisoners who committed grave crimes, to win their freedom, or reduce their sentence by 1 year for every year they spend on the front lines fighting as wardens against devourers. People began to look at wardens as criminals who were being punished for their crimes, and even those who respected shift battle contestants more, causing the gap difference to spread. Of course, that was a minor issue compared to a majority. 5999 TE. Callus Rhodes, head of the guild, began to bargain with Infinity over the Fate links. The problem he understood was that humans have a certain lifespan, which would mean many of the great ranked warriors had passed away or eventually will. Infinity decided to adjust the Fate links. A new option was formed. It allowed Fate Elixir to be an option and Fate Lottery to be another. The Fate Lottery was the usual Fate Link feature to allow a random thing to be obtained in return for a Devourer core. But the Fate Elixir was to combat old age. It allowed people to exchange Devourer cores in order to gain extra years of lifespan. Of course, it was limited to a rank and above cores. An A rank core would allow 10 years of life, while an SS rank core could allow 30 years of life. Although, no one knew what anything SSS rank or higher would be able to give, as no one was willing to trade in such a priceless object. The reason behind this was that an SSS rank Devourer was capable of combating 5 SSS rank Mancers. And with only a handful of SSS rank Mancers, all of whom are famous individuals, it would be difficult in many aspects. One of these problems would be who would obtain ownership of the core. Another would be if any of them died, humanity would be weakened. Another was the one time an SSS rank beast was fought by these heroes, it was by chance as the creatures are incredibly rare. But the guild had no problem with this. With the introduction of elixirs, it allowed anyone with an A rank core or higher to become a youth again to extend their life and improve themselves. It also meant humanity was now capable of breaking their limits. Reaching the SSS rank would take a lifetime, and those that had achieved this would die in a few years of old age, meaning that rank was the end of one's life. But with Fate Elixirs it allowed them to continue to improve themselves in hopes of one day surpassing it. This meant that the CF would see a rise in profits from those wanting to become youths again. It also sparked a change in shift battles. With the creation of wardens, there were not high-ranked Mancers fighting in shift battles as many were celebrities endorsed by clans who focused on that to gain fame and power. But Fate Elixirs fixed that problem to a degree. It allowed those Mancer pilots to continue to fight in shift battles to improve their rank. In addition, it also allowed new pilots to flood in with hopes of gaining fame. With the introduction of Fate Elixirs, even the guild found it relieving, as their brightest minds would not perish, and in turn, be able to work with the new generation of geniuses of humanity. 6054 FE, 4th Era, humanity has begun to live a comfortable life. With Fulcrum and its branches maintaining order, and clans focusing on shift battles or gaining power by being all wardens or dipping into both, humanity's luxury was now focused on themselves, as the Devourers no longer bothered to attack seriously, having nested in the sectors that were lost. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.